Hey guys, welcome back. It is May 5th, I believe, and today we are going to finish up the axle assembly on the other axle. Hopefully get the axles and bowl gears installed and the PTO. So I don't think we'll get the top cover on today, but maybe, because once the axles and the PTO are in, you're pretty much ready to put the top cover on. So maybe, but I only got a couple hours to be out here, so we'll give it a shot. Two things real quick. I did want to say thank you because I received a surprise in the mail from, I had my suspicions. Let me grab it here. I had my suspicions, but Owen sent us an inspection mirror that actually has lights on it. So big thank you to Owen for that. It's going to come in handy with a lot of projects. Probably will come in handy with this yet still. So Owen, thank you for that. You've sent us a lot of things to use, and we definitely have gotten our use out of them. So that's just one more item to add to the list of great things that we can use in the shop here. So another thing is I wanted to talk quickly about the dial indicator that we used. So in the last video, the differential setup video, the portion that I was showing, I was actually using it incorrectly, okay? At the beginning. I ended up figuring it out after I finished the video, and I got to thinking about it, went back and double checked some things, and when I first was attempting to read the gauge, I was assuming that it was pressure vertically or perpendicular to the gear, right? That is not the case. What you want to do is you want to set this gauge so that it's at about a 30-degree angle, because it's actually side-to-side movement that it measures in this needle. It's not vertically. So you won't get an accurate reading if you're trying to push directly against it. You have to do it at, you know, an angle to the needle, side to side. So I came out, rechecked everything. We were still okay. We were still within tolerance. We actually spec'd out at about 11 thousandths, and tolerance is 8 to 12. So we're doing okay. I can live with that, considering they're used gears, probably the original gears, and you can't go wrong with still being within spec. And it's not worth it to try and find a matching gear set that's better than this, because it may be worse. I don't know if they make new ones. They might, but if they do, they're astronomical in price. I can guarantee you that. Any type of gear that's new, especially for these older machines from the dealer, they're very expensive. So I've seen some of these gears run upwards of $700. So it's just not worth it. I mean, you can buy an entire tractor running for 700 bucks. So with that said, I already showed you the axle assembly video, so I'm going to do that one off camera, and then once both axles are ready, we'll get everything set to go. We'll put the axles and bowl gears in, we'll get that on camera, and then yeah, we'll install the PTO, which will only take a couple seconds. The brake pedal, clutch pedal, cross shaft will install, and should be able to put the top cover on from that point on. I also was going to install the brake drum seals into the pinion carriers after we installed everything, you know, as far as the carriers go, but I'm actually going to real quick take those apart and install the seals on the floor. So we're actually taking a step backwards, but you guys kind of know what it looks like to install seals. So basically, I'll show you offhand what we got to do. So these are our bowl pinion seals. They go inside this recession. You know, I might be able to install these. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I might be able to install these the way they are. My only concern is I don't really have a socket or a driver that's exactly the same circumference as the outside of this, so I don't want to damage the seal driving it in. But I do have some things that I can probably use. I just got to look around. So I'm going to do that before we even start on the axle assembly. So let me look around and see what I got, and we'll go from there. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. I oiled up the seal bores in the carriers. I'm going to see if I can... So I got a large piece of pipe here. Center it as best I can on the seal itself. I'll get a block of wood. Let me get my brass hammer. It actually went in quite easily from the get-go. And on these we can install dual seals, so that's what I'm going to do. But as long as I can get that thing started, or I should say as long as I can get it a little bit, here, let's do this. So I'm just kind of working my way around the edge, and I'm hitting on the outer edge of this pipe. So I'm driving the seal actually with the edge of the pipe on the rolled edge of the seal, and not the center of it. So we should be able to install the second one now. We'll get that done and go to the other side. Alright, we've pounded it in, the second seal in flush. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take grease and pack it in this area. Anytime you use double seals, remember I said before, you always want to pack grease in there, because that outermost seal will run dry without that grease, and it'll burn it up and it'll be pretty much useless. But as long as you pack this area with grease, it should be well lubricated for a long time. Alright, so we'll go ahead, pack this with grease, we'll move to the other side, and it went a lot easier than I thought, and we didn't have to remove the carrier. So we'll see you guys on the next portion. Alright guys, we're all set up, ready to install the right side axle housing and axle. I've also got the bowl gear in place. Now this is a challenge by yourself for sure, because you have to slide the axle in as well as align the splines and the bowl gear onto the interior portion of the axle. I've also installed the gasket on the housing with the bolts so that it kind of hangs them in the gasket in place. I'm going to use my floor jack to stabilize the axle housing as I slide it in, and real quick, the orientation of the bowl gears, if you look, okay, it'll be easier if this one. So the interior portion of the bowl gear, the portion that faces the inside or the middle of the transmission, is pretty much flat, okay, as far as this area goes. Now if you look at the other side, there's a clear ring of, I guess I'm going to call it a protrusion that goes around the inside, or the case side. So the portion that faces the case is here. So this is outwards towards the axle, and then the inside that is flush is in towards the middle of the transmission. Okay, so that's how the bowl gear is orientated in the rear housing. So I've got that portion set in. I've got my axle balanced well on my floor jack. So now, real quick, I'm going to grease up the mating surface here and the mating surface inside, and then we'll work on sliding the two halves together. And I do have sealer on that gasket as well on both sides. So let me put some grease on those areas, and we'll make our first attempt at sliding everything together. All right. Okay guys, we're going to give it a shot here. In case you didn't notice, I did put everything on the ground as far as the transmission case goes, because if this thing were to be up in the air and become unstable, I don't want to risk dropping it. So it's safer for me to work with this thing on the ground. I do have an engine hoist, so might as well use it. This is definitely a challenge. Okay. I don't think I've got enough of this axle in place yet to where I can sorry, I'm kind of out of breath because this stuff is heavy. I don't have it far enough in to where I can actually install the bolt. Once I get it far enough in to where I can put that interior bolt on, or get the housing bolt started. Oh, there we go. As long as I can get one started, the rest is easy. Okay. Now the other advantage to this, with the floor jack, I can adjust the tension on these bolts. So that I can thread them in easily. I don't have quite enough in yet to where I can install that interior. There we go, we're seated. There. I'll show you guys what I'm doing in here. So the interior bolt goes on like so. And we should be able to get most of the exterior bolts finger tight. And then we can kind of block up this end of the axle so that when we install the other side it's not moving around so much. Should be pretty well balanced on one side. This actually was a lot easier than I thought. But okay. I'll work on tightening a lot of these bolts all the way around, and we should be golden. All right, we've got the other axle assembled and ready to go in. I'm going to go ahead and start sliding it into the housing. I got to slide it out a little bit here. The tricky part is getting this bowl gear aligned. I mean, obviously. But once you get them meshed together, you can kind of wiggle everything. Oh, too much. Get the bolts started. See if we can get the inside one started. Just like that. Making some serious progress here today. We're gonna have both axles on. Next we'll put the PTO in and get it back up in the air so we can put the transmission top cover on. Alright, I'll tighten all these. I'll tighten the two inner axle bolts here, the bowl gear to axle bolts, and we'll get it back up in the air. Up, up, and away. Alright, it's in the air. We'll get it on jack stands, and I'm probably going to move it over a little bit so it's centered in the garage. That gives me more area to work around it. So give me a few minutes, we'll get it set up, and next is the PTO. Okay guys, we're going to go ahead and slide the PTO in. Now before we do this, on this style PTO, there's a sealing ring similar to what's on the pinions, the pinion carriers. There's a sealing ring that goes around the bore portion of the PTO housing, I'll call it, the seal carrier and housing. And they're no longer available from Case International or from any other vendors. So the best bet that you can do is to try to match one up as far as an O-ring or sealing ring goes. What I did is I took and put some RTV around that ring because it was still plenty pliable and flexible. There weren't any cuts or breaks in it. And there's also a gasket that goes around here, so I'm not too concerned with that part leaking. So we'll go ahead and slide it into place and tighten everything down. The most challenging part will probably be getting it aligned with the shaft at the front of the transmission there, the countershaft. So we'll guide it in. Try not to get my arm in the way. And I'm trying to see down in front of the carrier assembly there. Or I should say the differential. Let's see, I might have to disengage the fork. There we go. Get all the bolts started. And I can definitely feel the the RTV and that sealing ring doing the work. So that's a good thing. I'll grab the socket and ratchet I should say, and we'll start tightening it down. I can't even talk. Okay guys, one of the things I'm concerned with, hopefully it doesn't become an issue, I'm just packing these brake shaft or brake pedal shaft, brake and clutch pedal shaft seals with grease. That way there's plenty of lubrication in there for them. You don't have to worry about them running dry. But one thing that I'm worried about is the clearance in the middle for the PTO shaft. I don't think it'll be an issue. I hope. But you never know. Like I said, that other shaft that came out of this thing was had a milled portion in it to clear that PTO shaft engagement collar that engages with the rear of the counter shaft. And I'll grab the shaft here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But okay, now we're all greased up. So let me grab that shaft and I'll show you. Okay, you can see this is the original shaft and it's got a milled area to clear the PTO shaft engagement collar. I'll see if I can get a light down in there so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So that shaft, if you see that yoke right here, I'll move the engagement lever so you guys can kind of see what's going on down there. See how that engagement collar moves back and forth off the counter shaft? Well, I'm concerned that it may hit the new shaft, but there's only one way to find out, and that's to slide it in place. And it looks like we'll be okay, because all the research that I've done, they only list one part number for that shaft. So we should be okay. I hope. Oh yeah, plenty of room in there. I mean, it's close, but there's definitely plenty of room. Alright, perfect. So our brake pedal and clutch pedal shaft is in place. Our PTO is in. That should be it. I think we can put the top cover on. Okay guys, well, my camera ran out of battery again. I think I might have left it on while I was getting the transmission top deck hanging from the engine hoist. Now the most challenging part of this whole thing is getting these shift forks aligned with these collars. Okay, you can see right here, my camera keeps going in and out of focus, but there's a collar here, there's a collar here, and there's a collar here. So what you got to do is slowly lower this thing down, get your guide pins started. There's one on that side, one on that side, and then I fabricated one here because it was missing. So what you got to do is lower it down slowly and get those shift forks in alignment with the gears. Now the best way to do it, if you can see down inside here, let me grab I'm gonna need a light. My light's dying. Oh boy, I'm so unprepared. Okay, you see those rectangle slots? When those are all in alignment, that means your transmission is in neutral. So that's the position we want to be in. So we'll start lowering this thing down. I don't know if I'm going to be able to record the actual lowering of it, just because I don't have a place to set this camera. So I'm actually using my cell phone. But when you got to improvise, you got to improvise. So remember, these forks have to be aligned with these gears in those slots. And you might have to get like a screwdriver in here as you lower it to slide these gears around on the top shaft, and that'll help you align everything. But we'll go ahead and get that done and show you what we end up with. We are all sealed up. We've got the transmission top deck on, we've got the axle and axle housings on, PTO is in, seals for the pinions and the brakes are in, brake pedal cross shaft is in. Looking good, looking good. And again, I'm finishing up this with my cell phone, and I'll give you a peek down inside here. Probably can't really see a whole lot of it, but I'm not allowed to use my flash when I'm filming. So, let's see if I can get anything in there with a flashlight. So you can see where our fork is engaged with the collar on the gear there. It should look like that on all three sets of gears. But everything is in, everything is tight. Consult the service manual for your torque specs. You know, if there's something that's not listed in the service manual, again, I always check Google. And I'm going to put the torque specs for a few things in the link or in the description of the video below. but there's plenty of generic charts for torque specs in regards to bolt size. So just reference those if there's not something listed in your shop manual or service manual. But I'll put all the torque specs in the video description below that I can find, and we'll keep going. I think the next thing would be to put all the new bushings in the drive shaft, install the drive shaft, bolt on the clutch housing, and I want to install the drive shaft first because it's easier to work sitting up rather than laying down. So I'll slide the drive shaft in, and then I will put the clutch housing on over the drive shaft. So that's all we got for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Thanks for wrenching with me, and stay tuned for the next. We're getting real close to a rolling chassis.